The Renaissance Period presents Rebellious Voices, the podcast discussing everything menstruation. Yes, everything. We'll meet at the intersection of arts, literature, advocacy, policy, and most importantly, community. All right, and today is Monday, 27th of May, and this is the Renaissance Period with Rebellious Voices. And we are currently in a panel with a series called You Cannot Take the Men Out of Menstruation. And today we have joining us Stephen Renwick, who is actually an old friend. I think now we've known each other for about 12 years.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Does that sound about right? Yeah, it's crazy. And incidentally enough, the reason why I've actually asked Stephen to join me is for that reason. You know, we met a long time ago where I myself was very ill at the time and hadn't really understood why I felt the need to explain to people, oh, you know, I'm dealing with this illness. And you were one of the first people, one of the first males that I remember had some empathy and some consideration with the topic in terms of the condition called endometriosis. And it was because you yourself, were aware of the topic. You know, you were aware of someone who was also a sufferer. And so for that reason, I wanted to get this kind of topic in front of you, these voices of men. And when we're talking about allyship and education on the topic on menstruation, we truly cannot take men out of this conversation. We want everyone to have a voice in this. So I want to turn it over to you and just give an intro of yourself and how you are tangential to this conversation on
Sure. Okay.
menstruation.
So yeah, Stephen, originally from the UK or Scotland to be specific, living in Berlin for the last 12 years, which is also crazy. And yeah, we met many years ago back in Oxford, where, as you said, I was probably one of those rare people that had even heard the word endometriosis. And
Mhm.
I guess we would have talked about the endometriosis a little bit later, um, because once I moved to Berlin, I had a girlfriend here who had pretty bad endometriosis, and it wasn't 100% diagnosed because you can only really confirm endometriosis once you do surgery and see the cells,
Yes.
the cells themselves in the wrong place. But the pain of her periods was exceptionally intense, which meant it almost certainly was endometriosis because the pain she was having during her periods was not normal.
Yeah.
She also had a couple of ovarian cysts erupt while we were together, which meant a couple of hospital trips. Um, and yeah, my wife now, so different person, but to clarify, but my
Yes.
wife does
Yes.
have confirmed endometriosis, which we didn't really realize, but
Mhm.
she had surgery for another reason a bit of over 2 years ago, and there they said she had endometriosis. It was quite light or relatively. I think it was like a scale of like 1 to 4, and she was on the low end of the scale. Um, but they still had to remove
Yeah.
endometriosis or inappropriate cells, wherever they are. And
Yeah.
yeah, it maybe made her think a bit more about whether the pain she'd be having during her periods was normal or not.
Yeah. And it's that is exceptional. One, that you have uh, twice been in a
Mm.
position of being a partner uh, to a sufferer. And so even mentioning, you know, trips to the hospital and such. Would you say you feel like you were well equipped to be considerate of these individuals, you know, in your personal life, and then we can talk about
Yeah,
some of
I
the other
mean,
areas as well. But
being well equipped, I don't think it's pretty difficult to be well equipped other than to be empathetic. Um, and to do whatever you can to kind of more or less physically and mentally support them each time they're having their periods.
Hmm.
So, like with my wife, it's
Yeah.
not been the actual endometriosis hasn't been like a problem. Like our periods, I don't think have been especially painful. I mean, they're never a walk in the park, but they've not been so bad. But you know, the, it obviously can have an impact on fertility, which is what we were concerned about at the time. With
Yes.
my ex girlfriend, I mean, she was in extreme pain for several days each month,
Mhm.
and I think
Yeah.
one of the whole problem with endometriosis is nobody if you're kind of used to it and that's what you've always had, you're always told that periods are painful, and therefore you think, well, it's just a period, so it's painful. And the doctors themselves, I think most of them don't
Hmm.
really realize how painful it can be, and therefore they're
That's the
always
barrier.
thinking, well,
Yeah.
it's just a normal period. Like periods are unfortunately painful, but um,
Hmm.
yeah, because I guess male doctors don't have any clue about the pain, and most female doctors don't have endometriosis. So they don't know how bad the pain can be. You can never really perceive someone else's pain, so a lot of the time people
Yeah.
are assuming it's exaggeration. But there's no way you should be like on max
Yeah.
strength painkillers for like 3 days, or have to spend 2 days in bed um, once a month. And some people have it even
Debilitating.
worse than
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I definitely built up a pretty uh, a strong understanding and sympathy for people that have it. And
Yeah.
also just that nobody knows what it, nobody, hardly anyone knows about it. Nobody's heard this term endometriosis. And like with your reaction, when suddenly you say, oh yeah, I know all about it, it's almost like, oh my God, you know what I'm going through because it's so rare.
Yeah. 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 Well, so interesting enough that the term is starting to get um, more. You see it more written, I would say, in media. I'm seeing it, coming up more. Though the I say the scales are not quite equitable in terms of if we're hearing it more, why do we still have to, we're still so far behind in the education of it, with the knowledge of it all,
Yeah.
the research behind it, the funding behind research. So even with the knowledge space, having these conversations, is one thing, but it has to be a matter of trust, right? Knowing where, the source of the information. So, how did you learn about menstruation as a whole? Like, what's your story of, coming of age, where you were learning school in Scotland, sex ed or anything? How old were you and how did you learn
So my
about
first
menstruation?
memory of it is we had our, I think, first sex education class in what we would call primary seven. So the kids would be like 10,
Hmm.
11, I think, maybe 11 years old on average.
Okay.
And you're doing the sex education,
Okay.
and then the girls get taken into a separate classroom for one session where the boys don't get to participate. And then they all come back slightly giggling
Yep.
with a box of something, which I presume is tampons or something like that. And they quickly rush in and put it in their bag so the boys can't
Yes.
see. The boys don't get told what's going on. It's just like this,
Okay.
ooh, the girls were already doing their girls thing. And I don't know if they still do it
Yes.
that way. I mean, that was 34 years ago. Maybe it's a bit more modern now. But
Yeah.
you would hope so, but I
I
wouldn't be
hope
surprised.
so.
So that was my, I mean, not that I actually learned anything from that, but that was my first awareness of there being a topic. After that, I can't really remember when I would have learned anything. I mean, um, I do remember my parents getting me
Yeah.
some books and stuff like that. So I must have learned something about that from it, but I'm pretty sure I've never had a conversation about periods with my mother. So let's put it that way.
Yeah. See, and that's the thing is it's when we're talking about the source or the trust where you would get this information. This is the context. It's you're either getting it from your family or you're getting it from socialized public health, during the school or sex ed. I had it the same way. That your way of learning was exactly the same way. The girls, we were taken to one side, and the boys were taken to the other side. So they got to watch some video, we got to watch our video, and then we come back together. I think that is so ludicrous that we cannot figure out how the boy should sit through that. And we, it was like they, had the sex ed with the condoms and everything, and we were just told, "Oh, we're going to be in
It's a
pain
it's a, it's a
forever."
pretty ludicrous way to start it because
It
it just starts the whole conversation
is
as being separate.
starts exactly. It starts the break of,
Yeah,
this is not my problem. This is a female thing, and and that's where we need. And but we also know we need this education because you don't want a boy to have the wrong information and is getting it from God knows where, and is passing that
yeah.
information along. And we know how kids are. Uh, you know. So, what did you have any siblings? And were you around any other family or friends that were of menstruating age, when you were of that age? Did you know, like, were you aware of, like, did you have a sister or anything that you were
No,
aware of
I mean, my
someone
sister
else
was far
being a
too
bleed?
young. But I mean, my mother was presumably was, and now you mention it, I remember being in the supermarket. If I was with us in the supermarket with my mother, and she'd say, "Go off and get some biscuits," which I don't know. I don't know why she did it.
Yes,
I guess that was kind of normal back then. Maybe every
it's
kid
just
went
normal.
through
Yeah,
that.
that
Go off
was
and get some
normal.
biscuits,
Yeah,
and you come back. There'd be something extra in the shopping trolley, which I only just remembered that. But yeah, that's basically how that happened. So yeah, again, no conversation about periods or anything with my mother,
yeah,
and my sister was far too young when I was living at home.
yeah. But I mean, it's certainly, if it was a topic, as you say, like, with school, and then you have, you know as you're developing, as you're going through school, were you aware of any instances where, like, perhaps a girl didn't join in gym class? That was an earlier panelist said that was kind of how they would understand that there was something going on with the girl, was, oh, she didn't participate in gym class. Or if a girl had an
Yeah.
accident
So
at school. uh, were
So
you aware of any
never
cases
any
like that?
accidents or anything like that I can remember, but I mean, girls not taking part in gym was pretty frequent. Um, I guess to this day, I don't know
Hmm.
if they were not taking part in gym because they legitimately couldn't, or were using it as an
Yeah.
excuse because you know that's maybe. I mean, if I'm to
Yes.
believe the tampon adverts,
Obviously.
you can do roller skating and skydiving while on your period. So I'm pretty sure you can do Scottish country dancing.
Because I do recall being able to use that excuse because you knew you were untouchable. You knew that you wouldn't be able to, especially for a male
Exactly.
teacher,
He's
you
not going to
wouldn't
argue
really
with
say
you.
anything. Yeah,
It is
it
the
is
ultimate
the
get out
sacred
clause.
text.
I just have the feeling it
It
was
is. It is.
slightly over leveraged.
Do you feel like that? You've been in environments, now in your adult life, where you can feel like you can lend a voice as
Um,
an ally to
oh,
succeed in those environments.
I can't honestly say that in my work life I've ever noticed periods, to be honest, or anything to do with people having periods. I mean, the
Okay.
closest I can think of is that, I don't know, just now, for example, where I work, it's all unisex toilets, and there's lots of like period uh, uh, hygiene items in the toilets there.
Products.
But when it comes
Yeah.
to actually working with people and like taking time off for it, it's a difficult one because if you do have like really strong periods and you're kind of unable to work 1 or 2 days a month, then you can't work 1 or 2 days a month, and it's more or less a disability,
Hmm.
um, isn't it? Because you know you're effectively working at like 95% or something if you lose a couple of days.
Yeah.
So there's probably not much
Hmm.
point in forcing someone to work when they can't. At the same time, it's pretty difficult for companies if you're dependent on someone that are out for 2 days, but you maybe don't have really have much choice. So
Yeah.
it's not really something I can say so much about because I've not really encountered it enough, I think.
Where do you find? Um, where do you think that you see? You say you see these adverts, but do you find the topic of menstruation come up anywhere else where you may digest information. So whether it's in news or movies or books, do you feel like it's a topic that has become more prevalent, more discussed?
I'd say people are maybe more comfortable talking about it. I think I remember one of the most recent times I saw a ridiculous discussion about it was it not Donald Trump was saying that Hillary Clinton shouldn't be one of the reasons he was saying she shouldn't be president is because she has periods and she might accidentally nuke someone because she gets angry.
Yeah, her finger would be on
So
the.
that kind of like
Yes,
I guess
yes,
that was,
yeah.
obviously it's a stupid thing to say, but in some ways it highlights the sort of
Hmm.
stupid attitude that less intelligent
Hmm.
people will have about a pretty normal
Hmm.
topic. Um, yeah, so that's pretty
Exactly.
crazy. Otherwise,
For
one
you
of
as
the
well.
areas I've seen it get actually destigmatized a lot, I would say, is the period tracking apps. So
Ah, yes.
one of the popular ones, Clue, was started by a woman in Berlin, and my then
Hmm.
girlfriend knows the founder and worked for the company for a while.
Okay.
So I remember her bringing home or using the app, and I
Yeah.
would like there was like a companion app, so the male could see on the app some information about what their partner was going through at the time. So yeah, so
Going
he wouldn't see
through.
everything because obviously
Wow.
it's like it's very intimate information. But if your partner wanted, you could
Yes.
see
Yeah.
when they were due to have their period, basically, and possibly also their fertile window because it's also like a kind of fertility aid. But first of all, you would see when they're about to
Yeah.
start suffering potentially, and secondarily when they're going to be fertile. And I guess that was pretty
Yeah.
cool because um, one of the cool things with that app is they were very much into making periods just a kind of normal thing. Like a big thing for them was design and not making it all about flowers and all that sort of crap. It was like this is like
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
show how heavy the period based on like a number of like dots on a page on an icon and stuff like that. So that was I think
Yeah.
that was a kind of like a an interesting point in the discussion evolution.
That's interesting too, because you're now talking about, even from uh the tech side of it, it's allowing for people to really have this information at their fingertips. Because even females, there's a lot we still don't know about our own bodies, because we were taught whatever we were taught from the biology class and sexual reproduction classes, and but then we still go off with this huge gap in knowledge of, like I said, these topics on
Yeah,
endometriosis or PCOS, or all these other things. And so, yeah, having something like technology where you can even share that information with like I said, your partner, but more so having a stake and a claim, so that you have this data that you can go to your own doctor
yeah.
and advocate for
And
yourself.
what I don't know
Is impressive.
is like
Um,
period data normally is quite kind of anecdotal, right? You only know what's going on in one person. If you're a doctor, you only know what's going on in one person at a time. Now I know these period apps are very
yeah.
they're very careful about what they do with the data, but they do
Yes.
theoretically have the data to actually do pretty interesting kind of meta analysis of what is the normal kind of pain levels that
Mm,
people report. How long do periods really last? Is it really 2 to 3 days, or are most people like
yes.
4 to 5 days? What is the kind of spectrum?
Yes. Yeah.
So that might be something that's I don't know
Yeah.
if they've actually looked at that or not, but it would be interesting to know, do they do any kind of like scientific research for the kind of greater good?
Well, I mean, that's what I really hope, and I know that we go down the gray area of how data is being used, in terms of, like, there was the conversation with corporations who were, let's say, allowing for these apps to be used, but that means they're also tracking their cycles as well. That what I don't see is how we could collectively use that data, and then also having conversations about AI, and, to your point, being able to map the
Mhm.
future, like looking forward. uh, this is where this would affect, or where we could um, plan days around school based off of girls' periods, or we can plan, work days based off of the
I think what,
flow
what it
of,
could also do
a
is do things
cycle.
like
Uh,
say to a woman, what you're experiencing just now is not normal, right? If you're logging, I've got heavy flow for
mhm.
like 5 days in a row, and that's all they've ever experienced, and they don't talk about it, and then suddenly the app can say, you're not actually meant to have
Yeah,
heavy flow for 5 days. Speak to your doctor. Otherwise,
yeah,
they probably would have just lived with it.
exactly. How would you feel about having to, run out and
Huh.
how do you feel like your knowledge of, okay, if you were sent out to the shop, you would feel comfortable being able to grab the right hygiene products for your
Okay,
partner?
well, I remember the first time my girlfriend, like this was a couple of girlfriends ago, um, asking me to go out and buy
Mhm.
period stuff from her, and I was like, "What? Why? Me? No, I'm a guy. I can't go buy that." And I was embarrassed that I had to go and buy it, but I was also embarrassed that I was embarrassed because I knew it was a stupid thing. So I was like, "Okay, I've got to get over myself.
Okay.
I'll go and do it." And now, yeah, I don't have any problem going and buying stuff. I do need to be told what to buy though. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's I don't expect to know because you just know what the flow is and stuff like that to know what to buy. I'll tell you
Yeah, exactly. The fact that
but
you
I'll
know
tell you a
that
funny
is
thing.
even better.
So after my wife had our baby, um, you're meant to get
Hmm.
special pads for like post birth because you bleed a lot more post birth. And
Yes.
she told me to go to the pharmacy store to buy them. And I went in and I didn't really know what I was looking for. I didn't find the right thing. And I came back with like massive incontinence pants that were absolutely gigantic. And yeah, I
Those
was
work
told I
too.
bought the wrong thing. And funnily enough, I then put it on. I didn't want to just chuck them in the bin, so I put them on like a Facebook group in Berlin that was like Free Your Stuff Berlin, with a pic with a picture of them on one pair on my head, explaining why I bought them accidentally. And this thing went viral for like about 3 weeks in Berlin. It ended up with over. I'm gonna send you the picture afterwards because it's pretty funny. It was like over. It had over a
Please send
thousand
this to
likes. This it's a pic. It's a picture of it's a picture of me holding the baby with a giant pair of incontinence pads on my pants on my head.
me.
So that was a mistake, and that was quite recent. But I would say I'm okay
but,
about going and buying stuff.
but you know what? Even the fact that you know about the flow and you know about the difference. Hey, you're way more knowledgeable than a lot of people. I have to say though, I the reason why the whole concept of the Renaissance period came about was because after I had given birth and I had to go through my new version of menstruation, even with the endometriosis and everything, I had no other way to find what I needed, my normal stuff. I had to
Yeah.
use incontinence pads. So that's hilarious. That was what I was forced to use because that's what I could find for the flow that I was dealing with. So that was the only thing that worked for me because it was not the other normal products that were on the shelves. So that's interesting
I've,
that
ju- I've just I've just
even though
I've just found it.
even though
I've
you're
just
a
found
little
it
more
actually. I'll uh, I'll send you a screenshot.
you have to send it. You must. So obviously you're getting you've gotten your education through your partners, but do you feel like now, what do you feel like you wish you would have known, growing up? What do you feel like you wish you were taught about menstruation? And then turn that around, and how do you feel like you want to prepare for your daughter when she.
I guess when you're like a teenager, you're pretty much taught, or you believe that it's like dirty and smelly, right? So, which must be awful for the
Mhm.
girls. Makes That's why they're also embarrassed. So,
Mhm.
I don't think
Yeah.
I think that's just almost like the nature of teenagers, is they turn anything they think it's maybe icky into something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't like
Yeah.
the whole starting off with like going off to separate rooms and stuff probably makes you think it is something icky and weird. So just kind of teaching people that it's normal
Yeah.
part of life. Um, I guess it would be the whole like what is normal pain thing. I think needs to be taught because it's probably good for the boys as well to know, that their girlfriends could potentially be in pain, and for
Yeah.
them to actually help judge whether or not the pain is normal or not.
Yeah.
What else could have been
Yeah.
taught? Uh, I'm not sure.
Think about it now in the context of what you want to impart, like what do you want to how do you want to be well versed in this topic, so when it's time for you to have
Just that
conversations
it's like a normal
with your
thing. Like
child.
it's not like some weird hidden thing
Yeah.
that she can only talk about mum with. She should be able to talk about it with me just as a completely normal thing as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, almost like
Yeah.
um, making it out that it's no, making her realize that it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And then obviously, knowing that if she sees the example of you being an ally, and how a male should react, or non-leader should react, then certainly then she'll be given the standard, I would say, for how she should be treated, and wherever else she
Yeah,
goes, where she's going to encounter those, at school and work and such. Um, well, thank you so much for your opinions on the subject, and for joining us, and as always for being an ally. It's always been very comforting knowing that there is someone who gets it and doesn't feel shame. So you've gotten well over the first time with the girlfriend where you felt shame for being shamed going to the store.
good, good.
You've well past that, my friend. Liked what you heard? Want to find out more? Or do you just want to throw your radical thoughts into a safe space? Well, here's how you can find these rebellious voices. Remember, this isn't just a revolution. This isn't just a rebellion. This is a renaissance. This is